In my neighborhood, they throw a parade in his honor. A friggin' parade. I mean, it wasn't fancy, but it was a gesture. To show love of what he meant. Can you imagine to be remembered like that?
In 2022, I went to see The Batman in theater with less than zero expectations and left being blown away by Matt Reeves' grounded take on the Caped Crusader. He took the Batman back to his detective roots and crafted a gritty noir mystery thriller that is arguably, yes, a very big arguably, the best Batman film ever made. HBO's The Penguin is a spin-off of Matt Reeves' The Batman and begins exactly where the 2022 film ended. Gotham was flooded, Falcone is dead, and power is up for grabs. Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, wants his piece of the Gotham pie and will do whatever he needs to do to get what he feels he deserves. The Penguin stands out as one of the most compelling television series of the year, combining gritty crime drama with a rich lore of Gotham City. So let's take a big Batwing-sized deep dive into what made this show truly awesome and one of the best shows of 2024. Colin Farrell's exceptional portrayal of Oswald Cobblepot elevates the character beyond the usual comic book stereotype. Gone is the top hat, long cigarette, and whatever that green goop dripping from Danny DeVito's mouth was in Batman Returns. Farrell's nuanced performance brings depth, menace, and complexity to the role. Showcasing a villain who is both brutal and oddly sympathetic, his performance has been described as a career-defining one, highlighting his ability to balance the grotesque and the grounded aspects. Farrell's transformation from low-level thug to a calculating crime lord mirrors classic mafia characters like Michael Corleone and Tony Soprano. He captivates every frame when he's on screen. Plus, the makeup work of Michael Marino causes Farrell to completely disappear. Even up close, the skin looks real, complete with every little imperfection and how it moves real skin. And then, of course, we have to talk about the breakout performance of Cristin Milioti as Sofia Falcone, an actress who just gets better with every episode. When they first set her up, they intentionally set her up as a wounded little girl after she was just released from Arkham Asylum and was put there basically because her entire family turned her back on her. But we soon see her cool and calculated manner as she tries to wrestle control of the family from the claws of her newly appointed uncle, Luca Falcone. Her portrayal of Sofia adds another layer of complexity. As a formidable rival with her own dark history, Sofia's interactions with Oz create a fascinating dynamic that drives much of the show's tension. We learn in episode 4 that her own father, Carmine Falcone, put her in Arkham Asylum and got her convicted of his murders of 7 women, including her mother, via hanging. Thus, she was given the name the Hangman, which makes no sense because she's not a man. Her journey from a fragile, recently released from Arkham, scary little girl to mafia queen is as compelling to watch as Oz's rise amongst the ranks. Her fractured relationship with Oz is the backbone of the entire series. She really wants to trust him, but he keeps letting her down, much to the chagrin of me and the audiences, as deep down we're all rooting for these characters to get what they want, but to also fix their fractured relationship. And just going back to Cristin Milioti, I only ever saw her in one other thing before. It was some kind of rom-com, and she just kind of came off to me as the typical rom-com actress, whatever. And then when I saw that she was cast as Sofia, I was curious, okay, how is this going to work? And like I said, it felt like they intentionally set her up in a certain way when she first comes on screen, but she gets better with every single episode. I don't know. Universe, the Penguin breaks away from the stale superhero formula, focusing instead on street-level crime and Gotham. The series emphasizes the realistic stakes, the cutthroat power struggles, and brutal violence that feels more like The Sopranos or The Godfather than a typical comic book show. Showrunner Lauren LaFranc has What makes the Penguin stand out is its character-driven approach. Oswald is portrayed not as just a villain, but as a deeply flawed individual shaped by his environment, his strained relationship with his mother, and his emotional baggage he carries from his youth are explored in depth, giving viewers a rich understanding of his motivations. This emphasis on character development allows the show to move beyond simple hero-villain dynamics, making it a gripping character study. It's also interesting to note that the series was in development before the Batman 2022 was even released. So the decision to create a spin-off wasn't based on Colin Farrell's incredible performance in that movie. But I'm willing to bet they exhaled a huge sigh of relief after seeing how much scenery he chewed up in his small amount of screen time. The Penguin fully embraces HBO's freedom to explore mature themes. The series is unapologetically violent and profane, but this isn't just for shock value. It serves to underline the brutality of Gotham's criminal underworld. The violence is visceral and fitting for a world where survival often depends on bloodshed. Penguin retains the dark, brooding atmospheres that defined the Batman with its moody, noir-inspired aesthetic, creating a world that feels oppressive yet captivating. The show's cinematography, while not as expansive as the film, manages to maintain the same gritty and grimy feel of Gotham's underbelly, immersing viewers into its dangerous streets. Although the Penguin can be seen as an origin story for one of Batman's most iconic foes, it never feels constrained by comic book conventions. Instead, the show dives into larger themes of power, identity, and the consequences of violence. It also hints at how Cobblepot will factor into the future of the Batman franchise, offering potentially tantalizing connections to the Batman Part 2. Yet it stands firmly on its own as a gripping crime saga. Not relying on the classic hero tropes to craft a powerful story.
But as amazing and almost perfect the show is, there is the one character of Vic who I feel is the weakest character in the entire show. Vic is played by Renzi Feliz and introduced as a young, ambitious sidekick. He starts as a low-level criminal trying to steal rims from Penguin's car, similar to the origin of DC's Jason Todd, the second Robin, who also begins by attempting to steal. But Oz sees something in him, and he recognizes his potential and desperation, so he spares Vic and takes him on as a driver and protege. Vic's background reveals a tragic history. He lost his family in the flood, orchestrated by the Riddler, which devastated Gotham, and left him with no one. This loss pushed him into a life of petty crime. Despite his seemingly mild demeanor and occasional stuttering, Vic's ambition aligns with Penguin's, so he's drawn to the idea of power and a place in Gotham's criminal hierarchy. But he is definitely in over his head. Oz is constantly up and down with him in terms of, on one hand, he's trying to teach him and take him under his wing, but on the other hand, constantly threatening him, essentially saying, hey, go along with what I'm doing or I'm going to kill you, which he has an opportunity to leave Gotham with his girlfriend, and he chooses not to, which in the long run is a dumb decision, and I'm sure he already regrets that, but he feels like he has to stick around. But one of my biggest issues with him is his god-awful stutter. It seems very shoehorned in, and the actor does not pull it off. It seems like he just didn't do any research or studying behind what actual stuttering is like, because I'm a stutterer. I'm not as bad as I used to be, but it's not like that at all. He's just kind of randomly doing it. It doesn't work, and it doesn't really need to be there. Like, he's already shitting in his pants, so why does the stutter need to be there? Like, we already see him. He's already a weak kind of character, introduced as a weak character. So the whole stutter thing seems extremely shoehorned in. And I would say overall, the weakest part of the entire show, on top of his character in general. But another one of the most weakest moments of the show that I wanted to touch on and felt so completely out of place was the moment in episode 7 when Oz is fighting Maroni. They're in the middle of fighting, and then all of a sudden, Maroni just has a heart attack. And I've never seen a more Deus Ex Machina type moment ever in my life. Considering the excellent writing, the excellent acting, the excellent everything, just in the middle of a fight, he just happens to die of a heart attack. There hasn't been any mention that if Maroni does have heart problems or whatnot. So in the middle of this fight, he just dies. It's so very convenient. Story-wise, it is the weakest moment in the entire show. And then even after that happens, Oz starts talking shit to him like he was the one that killed him. But why did they decide to do this? Why did they not at least set up the fact that Maroni had heart problems? It was just an extremely ridiculous moment, and it felt extremely forced and weak. And I don't know why they couldn't just have Oz kill him. Maybe intentionally, maybe accidentally something happened. But why they decided to go with the angle of him just dying in the middle of their fight was incredibly weak. And then the last episode of the season, the hour and 7 minute long episode. It was an amazing finale to the season, and it did leave the show up in the air. I thought that this was going to be a one-off season miniseries type thing, maybe, and that was it. But they were setting it up a next season. You really try to wonder how is it you're still able to root for Oz, because he is a truly awful human being. I mean, he killed his own brothers, and then at the end of the show he kills Vic, but it shows just how completely cold he is, and just like his mom said to his face that you were a monster. And there was a reveal that his mom knew the entire time that he was the one responsible for the death of his brothers. And then by the time we get to the end of his episode, his mother, after having a stroke induced by his troubles and getting her kidnapped. So she has a stroke, she's become a vegetable, and now she's in a bed in this building that Oz seems to be living in. And he has her by the window, and it's this quote unquote beautiful moment where he's looking out, and he's looking out the window very similar to how the Batman movie ended, when he was looking out at the window at the future of what the future holds. And in this show, it ends with him doing the same thing, looking out the window, but with his mom at his side, his catatonic vegetable mom. She knew all along that he was the one that killed her sons, his brothers. As great as this show can be, it still did have some moments that I felt were too convenient or too easy. Like I said before, with Maroni just dying right in the middle of a fight. And then, of course, Sofia has Oz again, tied up to a chair with a sting in his mouth. And yet again, he still gets free simply by just brute forcing himself and then shooting everyone. And then it's just kind of almost too easy how sometimes he just gets himself out of these situations. Though this time he doesn't talk his way out of it, he physically gets his way out of it. The Penguin can be seen as an origin story for one of Batman's most iconic foes, but it doesn't feel constrained. The show dives into larger themes of power and identity and the consequences of violence, but it hints at how Cobblepot will factor into the future of the Batman. If you've seen the show, then you know that it ends directly on a shot of the bat symbol in the sky. So that's very interesting. I'm looking at that as a setup of the next Batman movie. So does that mean the Penguin will be in it, or would the season 2 of the Penguin come out before Batman Part 2? At this point, it's all up in the air. But I am beyond happy with how this show turned out. Honestly, I'm now torn at which is my favorite show of the year, because this was a pretty great year for shows, starting off with Shogun, which I thought was amazing. And then X-Men 97 was incredible. My top one of the year still maybe the Fallout show, but this Penguin is like so far beyond what I was expecting. I knew it was going to be good, just like I do with most HBO shows, because they're just very consistent. Am I having that recency bias where you're like, okay, this is the best show of the year? But this is definitely one of the best shows of the year. And Colin Farrell and Cristin Milioti, especially Cristin, I think this is going to be a huge role for her, and her career is going to explode after this. Just hope she doesn't get typecast as the Mafia Queen. On the opening of episode 1, the Penguin has emerged as one of the must-watch series for both comic book fans and lovers of crime dramas. It's one of the best shows of 2024, and I hope that it gets the rewards recognition it deserves. With the powerhouse performances from Colin and Cristin and the richly textured world with unflinching violence, the show delivers a mature, character-driven narrative. The Penguin is a testament to how comic book adaptations can evolve into something beyond the typical action-packed spectacles. They can be nuanced, deeply human dramas set against grounded backdrops. My final score for the Penguin Season 1 out of 5 is a 4.8.
And the only reason it doesn't get a perfect score was how weak Vic was as a character overall, I felt, and the ridiculous, convenient moment of Maroney just dying in the middle of them having a fight. I just thought that was a bizarre choice in a show that was flawless up to that point. But beyond that, everything else is absolute perfection. Colin is incredible, and I hope he just gets every single acting award he deserves next. Probably the last great performance of the year, perhaps. You're hard-pressed to see a performance better than this for the next month and a half left in this year. But that's it. That's my review of the first season of The Penguin from HBO. An amazing show, and I can't wait to see where it'll go with season 2, or if the Batman 2 comes out first. If you've seen the show, I would love for you to give me your opinions. Drop a comment down below, and drop a like, and drop a share, and drop a sub, and drop it like it's hot. But thanks for watching my review. Keep writing.